Hi, this is Sengupta. I belong to the world of theatre, cinema, television, web series. I also used to be a teacher of art and theatre and education in schools. Uh, I was a part-time journalist for a short while, and I have been a lifelong cultural activist. So my journey has been across the space of arts and ideas and education. And the germ or the seed was first sowed way back when I was barely 5 years old. Yes, when my parents bought me 4 novels, abridged novels, but 4 novels on my birthday and gave it to me. These novels were David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. Then there was Jim Corbett's Man Eaters of Kumaun. There was Jules Verne's Round the World in 80 Days, and an American novel called Uncle Tom's Cabin. These 4 books. And Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island 5. These books changed my life. They made me enter the world of stories, ignited the world of imagination within me, drove me towards striving for creativity, made me question, made me try and understand everything around me. And probably that's where the genesis of being an aspiring artist began. So, my friends, I always advise that if you want to start exploring your imagination, your creativity, your aspiration towards arts, ideas, education, progressive values, anything, you've got to start with classics. In literature, in music, in cinema, in theatre, anything. Classics are the base. Classics are classics because they're universal and they're timeless. They encompass that kind of value and that kind of aesthetics which enrich you endlessly. After that, even if you see a lot of rotten things, you read a lot of crap book, it doesn't matter. You can filter them out because classics have created that aesthetic valve inside you. And this period of lockdown, when you have endless times, maybe it is a good time to go back and understand the history of theatre, cinema, arts and everything. We don't get the chance to do it often because we're busy mostly, but this is the time. If you understand the history of literature, cinema, music, arts, everything, you will be able to develop your consciousness and journey through the most beautiful moments of these mediums, and I can guarantee you will come out much richer. So, in literature, I'm sure you must have read all the classics, but if you haven't, then wanted to start with Charles Dickens, because that one man wrote some of the finestly sensitive literature around the period when England was going through Industrial Revolution, which created a lot of filth, squalor, exploitation. It was also going through what we call Victorian times of extreme conservatism, of stringent moral structure. Being a woman, being a child in this period of England was a punishment. And yet, Charles Dickens created some characters who went through all the struggle, all these difficulties and came out trumps, became successful, understood life better, took life by the scruff and made a difference. So if you read David Copperfield or Great Expectations or Nicholas Nickleby, I'm sure you'll be moved like I was. If you like adventure, then you can visit swashbuckling adventure stories by Alexander Dumas. Three Musketeers, Man in the Iron Mask. There's one novel, classic, which ignited my action imagination. That was Ivanhoe, about the round table of the knights of King Arthur. Ivanhoe was terrific. The American adventure movie, which was also a historical novel in a way, Last of the Mohicans, was fascinating. Fascinating. It's about settlers, it's about native Indians. The novel Uncle Tom's Cabin actually made me very sensitive about the whole deprived idea of slavery, which was prevalent in America's South at that time. Uncle Tom's Cabin is an extremely very sentimental, touching novel about one character called Uncle Tom. And it's beautiful. If you like humor mixed with adventure, mixed with history, then Mark Twain should be your fountain. Mark Twain's simple adventure stories called Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Adventures of Huckleberry Finn will take you through America in the 19th century. Take you through the slave lands, take you through the Civil War, take you through that period of American history, but through humor, through innocence. You'll enjoy it. That's for literature. As far as Indian literature is concerned, the classics would mean three persons for me: Premchand, Tagore, and Sharat Chandra of that period. Premchand wrote some of the finest stories about the feudal system of that time. Some of his stories were meant for children, like Bade Bhaiya, like Eidgah. So visit Premchand. You'll love it. There are many translations. I mean, he used to write in Urdu, but his translations are available in Hindi and English. Visit Tagore, of course, for rarely has the world seen a person making such contribution in different kinds of aesthetics, from poetry to prose, from painting to theatre to music, of course. And I'm sure had he lived more, he would have also got into cinema. So Tagore's stories also appeal to young hearts a lot, especially stories like Postmaster or Gora, the novel. I'm sure you love it. Tagore wrote many plays, complex plays. His plays were always more complex than his novels and his poems. You can visit them if you want. As I said, they are not easy to decipher. He wrote a play called Red Oleander, Rokto Korobi, and another called Visarjan, Sacrifice. Red Oleander was about industrialization and workers stuck in industrialization and their sense of freedom. It's a play. And Visarjan, Sacrifice, is about religious bigotry. It's about a kingdom where there is religious bigotry and how people try to come out of it. Hi, this is Sengupta again. We were discussing my journey and trying to understand what kind of journey you would like to have through literature, music, poetry, theatre, cinema, arts, ideas, everything during the time of lockdown. We discussed Tagore, we discussed Premchand. You could also read Sharat Chandra, who wrote around the same time as other two. Most of his novels or prose were aimed at a much more mature audience as such, but there is one particular novel which was divided in three parts, which was actually about growing up and dreaming and heartbreaks and failing and then finding yourself. It's called Shrikant, 3 parts, Shrikant trilogy. Definitely visit that, it's very interesting. That's Sharat Chandra. My literature, my favorites have always been Russian literature. I was brought up on Russian literature, both children and adult. If you haven't visited Dostoevsky, then you can call yourself deprived. Same is Gorky, epic writer. Poetry of Pushkin will touch you. Definitely visit Pushkin, Dostoevsky, Gorky. If you like revolutionary poetry, then read Mayakovsky. Mayakovsky wrote some of the finest revolutionary poetry known to us. So that's Russian literature. Let's get into plays, theatre. Visit Greek classical plays. Finest pieces of theatre, emotionally, craft-wise, in poetics, imagery, in looking at human psychology. No one wrote plays or dramaturgy with such depth of human psychology as the Greeks did. Sophocles, Aristophanes, Euclid, just read their plays. So many of the plays were written around about the Hellenic period. The epic wars that happened in Troy and Greece. The Hellenic period actually excited and created grand tragedies. But two plays which are psychologically extremely rich and absolute top of the classic is Oedipus and Electra. We use these two terms as psychological terms, Oedipus complex and Electra complex. So read them. And about the Hellenic War, visit Sophocles. There's Agamemnon, which you can read. It's at the beginning of the Trojan War, and so much. The Trojan Wars have been so well explored in Odysseus, epics, just like Ramayana and Mahabharata. Odysseus. That's Greek tragedy. Even we have some really rich classical plays in our culture that we call the Sanskrit classical plays, very easily available in Hindi and English translations. Kalidasa, of course, you all know about Kalidasa. Abhigyan Shakuntalam is very fine play. It's a very modern play in that sense, because these playwrights, especially Kalidasa, used metaphorical ideas, not literary ideas, to explore ideas of love, lust, morality, karma, dharma, whatever you call it. One of the funniest plays written in Sanskrit classical period is called Mritchikatikam. Mitti Ki Gadi, available in Hindi. Must explore it. It's very fun. From Sanskrit classical plays, you can straight away reach out for the master, Mr. Shakespeare. Yes, he wrote many a play. Now a lot of people find him very academic, very boring, but it is not so. If you really get into Shakespeare, keeping your prejudices aside, you will start enjoying them. There are abridged versions also available, and the original ones also. One of the plays which is extremely dramatic and quite simple to understand is Julius Caesar. Direct, simple political conflict. Explore Julius Caesar. Great play to enjoy. Another fantastic play is Tempest. Tempest is very rich. It's about isolation, like the lockdown you're having now. About a king isolated in an island for many years. It's a story of Caliban, who is actually a slave. So explore Tempest amongst tragedies. Comedies are so much fun. Shakespeare's comedy is so much fun. As You Like It is fantastic. Measure for Measure. Then around the same time as Shakespeare, or maybe a little later, there was a very funny playwright called Ben Jonson. He used to write satire. Yes. So you can explore Ben Jonson. He wrote a play called Volpone, which was about the pre-bourgeois society of that time, and the miserliness of the wealthy class and the cleverness of the servant class. Volpone. Just after that, there was a playwright in Italy, Goldoni, who wrote a play called Servant of Two Masters. That was also crazily funny. It's a satire. You can explore that, read that. I'm talking about these plays because they're also available online to watch. So you can read these plays and you can watch them online. You can compare what is on the page and how it has been visualized and crafted, given modern interpretation. It's fantastic. So Goldoni, Ben Jonson, Shakespeare, and we have already discussed Greek classicals, Sophocles. Greek classical also had comedy plays, by the way. Greek comedies, we call it. Not as popular as the Greek tragedies, as we know now. Lysistrata is one of the comedies. Pot of Gold is another comedy. You can explore that. Coming back to the more contemporary times, post-Shakespeare, you come to the period which we call the European realism period, where a playwright called Ibsen emerged and absolutely revolutionized by shaking up the bourgeois society of Europe with plays like Doll's House, yeah, and Hedda Gabler. Just trying to understand these women striving for freedom, striving to break the shackles. Fabulous plays. Post that, you come to the Russian realism and the plays of Anton Chekhov. He wrote many funny plays. Start with his one-act plays, comedies like Anniversary. That's a very, very funny play, Anniversary. So explore his one-act comedies, and then you can go into his more epic plays. They need a read and a reread, and they do need a different kind of understanding, but they are delightful. Uncle Vanya, Cherry Orchard, Three Sisters, fabulous. Anton Chekhov. Indian realism, much simpler to understand. If you read one of my favorite playwrights, Vijay Tendulkar, you'll understand Indian realism. His plays were provocative, strong. He never held back in language or in characterization. Fantastic. He's written some plays which are meant for young audience and very touching. One is called Mitra and one is called Ajji. And if you want to explore his serious plays, actually there's a fabulous musical which is there, which he wrote. It's a farce, brilliant play on exposing the Brahminical class in the Peshwa period of Maharashtra. It's a fabulous play. It's called Ghasiram Kotwal. Visit that. Visit an experimental play by Vijay Tendulkar called Shantataha Court Chalu Hai. Shant Court Chalu Hai. Quite the court is in order. Shantataha Court Chalu Hai. It's an experimental play about a mock trial that takes place and how the mock trial becomes very real for certain people. That's Vijay Tendulkar. If you want to explore satire, farce, which was written in abundance in India in the 60s and 70s, criticizing the political class and society in general, then you should definitely visit a playwright called Sharad Joshi. He wrote some of the finest farces, including Ek Tha Gadha, Aladad Kha, and Andho Ka Hati. Yeah, satire, metaphorical, fabulous. You want to visit a play which is part mythological but actually talks about contemporary times. So you know that idiom of talking about contemporary times but using myth. It's called Andha Yug by Dharamveer Bharti. Fantastic, about the post-war of Mahabharata. But actually, if you really look at it, interpret it, you are actually talking about today's India. Andha Yug, it's called. If you want to explore a play on nationalism, then in the British period, the Britishers really came down heavily on theatre because they felt very threatened by theatre. Theatre is always threatening; it's always questioning the establishment. So there was a play called Neel Darpan, which was a critique of the indigo farming forced upon Indian farmers by the British for commercial cultivation. Called Neel Darpan, which was banned by the British. You can visit that. And that was, I think, it was written in the 1930s. Yeah. More contemporary, explore Mahesh Dattani, one of our best contemporary playwrights. Explore his play Tara. It's about twin girls, and their tug of war. He has written a fabulous play on communalism around the demolition of Babri Masjid. It's called Final Solutions. Let's explore it. Then a play on incest, on sexual abuse called 30 Days in September. Fabulous. A play about dancers, Indian dancers, called Dance Like a Man. Explore that. Now, many of these plays are also available online. You must try and catch them. The Shakespearean plays I was talking about, almost all of them are right now streaming online. BBC is streaming them from the time that they had shot, 60s and 70s. Royal Shakespearean Company is streaming them. Globe Theatre is streaming them. National Theatre is streaming them. Go visit all of them. You're going to have a ball right now. A lot of musicals are streaming online right now. Phantom of the Opera is streaming right now. Catch it. National Theatre every Thursday is uploading, premiering what we call National Theatre Live at home. Fabulous. Treasure Island, Jane Eyre, Servant of Two Masters. Brilliant. Many great plays are coming. Enjoy yourself.